Hey, good morning to everyone, and it's really nice to be here with you, and it's certainly always a nice reflection of the people and the citizens and the leaders that were interested in where Scottsdale has been, where it's going, and its vision for the future.
I wanted to specifically recognize the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce for bringing together some of Arizona's most trusted and influential business minds and providing a forum to discuss the future of Scottsdale. Scottsdale is one of the most robust, inviting, and fastest growing cities in the country. It's no longer a city in isolation, but rather a hub of culture, entertainment, and bustling economic activity. And that's largely because of the leadership and vision of the people in this very room.
Scottsdale may be one of the greatest positioned communities to leap on this, move forward, embrace it, but it's going to require some real intellectual challenges.
We work to help companies looking to locate, expand, or grow or stay in Scottsdale. And so with everything we do in the Economic Development Department in Scottsdale, we think about this phrase. And as long as what we're doing serves this phrase, then we feel like we're on the right track. Our goal is to enhance the community's tax base and quality of life, preserve the natural environment, and foster prosperity for the citizens.
Here are a couple of the takeaways. Scottsdale is an amazing place. We do have priorities in common. And we've learned over the years too, once we bring those to the forefront and help people understand how much we really do have in common, it's amazing how well we can start working together in better ways.
Scottsdale is a remarkable place. It's a great place. It's one of those few great places. It has a brand and an awareness around the world that is unlike almost any other. It's part of our responsibility to convene around people getting together towards a common vision for the future of this community.
Please welcome to the stage our Scottsdale Chamber President and CEO, Mr. Mark Eagle.
Welcome, everyone. Scottsdale Forward is an economic development initiative undertaken by the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce. This forum is held annually and is intended to be inspirational, informative, and thought-provoking. For the first time in the history of the Scottsdale Forward event, we are completely sold out. Thank you all for the generous support of Scottsdale Forward. I'd like to give a special acknowledgement to Dr. Jan Geller in Scottsdale Community College for our venue today. Thank you, Jan, in Scottsdale Community College. I would like to invite up to our stage now Bruce Hallen, Director of Water Rights and Contracts for Salt River Project, our presenting sponsor today. Bruce?
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here this morning representing the Salt River Project at the annual Scottsdale Forward Economic Development Symposium. On behalf of everyone at SRP, we'd like to thank Mark and the Scottsdale Chamber for bringing us today's event. Scottsdale Forward continues to offer a valuable program that brings together government, businesses, the community, and friends. You'll see throughout the program that collaboration among partners is key to the success of economic development in Scottsdale. This morning, I'd like to show you a brief video that exemplifies collaboration among many entities. The video describes a group of partners working together to keep our forests healthy, which in the long run fosters healthy economic development. Please enjoy.
The Northern Arizona Forest Fund is a partnership between National Forest Foundation and the Salt River Project, and it was set up to improve the health of the Salt and Verde watersheds.
We should all care what happens across the watershed in the forested areas of northern Arizona, because that's the source of our drinking water. And it's not only the source of our drinking water, but it's the source of the economic vitality of the state.
So what happens in those forests, in those forested lands, has a significant impact on the quality, the reliability, and the sustainability of the water supply here in the valley.
Water is the lifeblood of the desert. We cannot live without it. It's a scarce and precious resource that needs our protection. To do that, we must begin at the source, the place our water originates, deep in the forests of northern Arizona. This landscape is at risk for catastrophic wildfire. Overgrown and unhealthy, our forests are highly susceptible to wildfire that not only threatens our communities and our economy, but also our water supply.
Phoenix's drinking water actually comes from the mountains of northern and eastern Arizona, and it's snowmelt and precipitation from those mountains that eventually makes its way into the Salt and Verde River systems that then feed the canals that end up here at the water treatment plant.
And one of the terrible after effects of fires is that the ground becomes impenetrable to water. It's almost like a rooftop. So now we have this huge burned area that's going to produce water that has these toxic elements in it, and it's all going to flow into our reservoirs and affect our water quality.
The only thing that can really guarantee safe, clean, reliable deliveries to our customers is a healthy watershed.
The Northern Arizona Forest Fund invests in projects that ensure the vitality of our water supply. These projects also create jobs and provide volunteer opportunities with local conservation groups.
The Northern Arizona Forest Fund has 4 main project types that it implements. They do thinning and prescribed fire, stream and wetland restoration, sediment and erosion control projects, and wildlife habitat improvement projects.
Through forest health, forest thinning, and forest restoration, we're ensuring that we have this long-term sustainable water supply.
Federal budgets are tight. It's more critical than ever that Arizonans be proactive and become stewards of our public lands.
It's very important for business communities, not only in the Phoenix area, but all across the watershed, to make these strategic investments in watershed health. If you're a beer producer or a soft drink manufacturer, water is your primary ingredient. And it's important enough to invest money in order to keep it a high quality so that your product is high quality.
Every Arizonan can play a role in the Northern Arizona Forest Fund. These are our public lands. We all have a vested interest in them. We all need to step up and make sure that they're as healthy as they can be.
There's a very direct connection between the health of the forests and the health of the Phoenix economy and quality of life.
Our quality of life in the Southwest depends on healthy, functioning forests and watersheds that are resilient to changing climate, drought, and catastrophic fire. We want to protect the health of our forests, our water supply, and our vibrant quality of life in Arizona. We welcome you to be part of the solution.
In case you didn't know, the City of Scottsdale recently became a partner of the Northern Arizona Forest Fund. Your city leaders understand that improving forest health in Northern Arizona helps to protect Scottsdale's water supply, a water supply that is vital for economic growth. So please join me in thanking the Scottsdale City Council and Mayor Land for investing in the Northern Arizona Forest Fund. Again, thank you for sharing your morning with us, and please enjoy the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce and SRP, for your continued support and sponsorship of the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce. The event would not be possible without the support of SRP and all our sponsors for this event. The Scottsdale Area of Commerce would like to thank all sponsors who make this event possible. Our presenting sponsor, SRP. Keynote sponsors, Cox Business, DMB, Widrock Financial Group. Corporate sponsors, APS, Banner Behavioral Health Hospital, Honor Health, Theranos, Wells Fargo. Breakfast sponsors, Arizona Bank and Trust, First Bank, Cactus Flower, CenturyLink, Southwest Gas Corporation. And our in-kind sponsors, Scottsdale Community College and Pro One Media Productions. Now I would like to welcome our Master of Ceremonies and friend, Roger Downey.
Thanks, Mark.
Wow, good morning. What a fine-looking audience here this morning, a very full audience. It's my great pleasure to be invited back to Scottsdale Forward to be your master of ceremonies this morning, and you're in for a great morning. First of all, though, we would like to introduce to you the people who are in the audience who are members of the City Council here in Scottsdale. Scottsdale Councilwoman Suzanne Clapp. Raise your hand so we know you were. There you are. Scottsdale Councilwoman Linda Milhaven. There you are. Scottsdale Councilperson Virginia Cordy. Scottsdale Vice Mayor David Smith. And the Honorable Sam Campana. Is she here today? All right, thank you. At this time, let's welcome our venue sponsor, Dr. Jan Gaylor, president of Scottsdale Community College, to the stage.
Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the faculty, the student affairs professionals, and the many people who make this a very special place, welcome to Scottsdale Community College, which is the only two-year institution of higher learning located on sovereign tribal land. And whether it's today or some other time that you come back to Scottsdale, I hope you'll explore and cruise and stroll our 160 acres, where it will be very obvious to you that as guests of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, we take the stewardship of our place very seriously. I know there are a lot of artichokes in this audience, and so you could probably rattle off these numbers just as well as I, but for others, Scottsdale by the numbers. Each semester we serve just under 10,000 students. We have about 400 employees. We have 174 full-time faculty and another 500 plus or minus, depending on the semester, part-time or adjunct faculty. Our students' average age is about 26. The majority of our students are part-time. So let me give you a couple facts. This is a learning institution, so here's a little instruction. Not only at Scottsdale and in Arizona, but across the nation, community colleges have been keeping track of how well their students do when they transfer to a university or a four-year school. And the majority of our students here at Scottsdale identify as their purpose a transfer to another university or college. So 2 data points. We have been watching for at least a decade here, and we can tell you that students who begin at a community college compared to those who begin at a four-year school do better in 3 ways. Academically, which means they get better grades. Persistence, which is what we refer to as the time from the amount of time from when they begin to when they actually reach the goal of earning that baccalaureate degree, and getting there efficiently and effectively, which means the least amount of time and lowest amount of cost. So the second data point, we've been watching this. The more time students spend at a community college, the more courses they take, the more semesters they stay with us, the better they do in those 3 indicators. So, moms and dads out there, people who have friends or family members who might be beginning to think about that journey to a better life through education, you might think about those facts a little bit. So I could stand here for hours and talk about the many signature programs and services that we provide here, but I won't. But I do want to, share with you, whether I'm sitting out there or I'm standing here on this stage, a question that often runs through my mind. If this stage or these drapes, the grand drape is not pulled right now, but if they could speak, what stories they would tell us. This stage has been the home for students and faculty for decades. Students that are performing in music, in theater, in dance, musical theater. We have graduation ceremonies here, nurses' pinnings here, dedication and installation to National Honor Societies. And we hold community events here, such as you're experiencing today. So I want to give a little bit of a plug to one community event. And you know, what family doesn't love to have company, right? So when we have an event where the community, we like to have the community come join us, we like to talk about it. April 11th is the beginning of Genocide Awareness Week. It is, our program, now in its 4th year, is nationally renowned. So I encourage all of you to look at your calendars, think about April 11th and that week. It's a week-long daytime and nighttime and weekend as well of thought-provoking, wonderful speakers, local, national, and international speakers. And if Randy Nussbaum is in the audience, a shout out to Randy. He and his firm are sponsoring an opening reception. So thank you to Randy. The other thing I will tell you, we have some areas that are draped here that are hiding these the fabulous set of the Great People of Szechuan. It is a play that our theater department began last weekend. It's running this Friday and Saturday night. And I will say to you, all of the performances here in this theater are free and open to the public. So right in your backyard is some exquisite entertainment done by students and faculty who are the most talented ever. Before I relinquish the podium, I, of course, want to thank the Chamber, but a special thanks to the folks who made this possible today from the college. They're up there in the back deck, or they're roaming around backstage, but a special thanks to Dr. Lisa Young, Amanda Embry, Donald Cole, Jules Davis, who is the person who is managing all of the media for us today, to Mark and Don and Jeff, our Performing Arts Center technicians, and probably many others that I can't name right at the moment. So again, we are thrilled to have you here. We have an agenda today that is designed to inform, to inspire, and certainly to engage each of you in a discussion about how to move Scottsdale forward. Thanks for being here, folks.
You know, every time I come to Scottsdale Community College, I see something new being built. It's amazing how this campus has grown. Thanks, Jan, for your support. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Mayor of Scottsdale, the Honorable Jim Lane.
Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to see you all out there here. This is a very, very special event. And I want to really commend the Chamber and all of the programs that they produce, but certainly this one is one that is near and dear to my heart because of the emphasis on what is going to move our city forward. You know, one of the things that was said by one of the previous speakers, and that is really what we really try to do when we talk about economic development and we talk about how we move our economic engines forward for the city or for the state. And that's the collaboration. That is the combining of resources. There's a lot of agencies, a lot of folks working to move the ball forward in a lot of ways. And so it's really important, in order to really be efficient about that, is to make sure you have good collaboration. And I tell you, with all of the organizations, inclusive of the Chamber, with their work with our school systems and bringing business and educators together to continue to build on our workforce, as far as our own city's economic development department and all the work that they do with our existing businesses, as well as to provide a platform that is attractive and frankly is one that our existing businesses care to be able to speak to their friends in the business world across the country in a positive way, but do all the kinds of things to make sure there's a fit, that they have the analytics, they know from the best that we can. From the city's standpoint, of course, we're here to provide as good a platform as we possibly can to make sure that our tax structure and our regulatory process and that our processes in general are efficient and sort of match with the kind of attitude and approach that business needs to have in the implementation of their own programs. But you know, it goes well beyond that. MAG, with their Economic Development Committee, ACA, Arizona Commerce Authority, and a variety of other, well, certainly all the other cities and towns within the state and their efforts to their own particular product and how we all integrate those efforts together and work together. That is the critical component. I think that's what you're going to hear here today. You've got some of the best in the industry that's going to be on the panel here for you in just a little while, and I think it's well worth listening, and frankly, it's a great representation of exactly how there's a come together on a lot of great efforts for all of us in the business world, in our communities, in our tax base, our tax engine, and everything we do to create a great environment here in Scottsdale, but also across the state. So thanks very much for being here, and I think you're going to have a great time. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special person here with us. Please welcome Councilwoman Deanna Scabby, who is from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community Tribal Council.
In the O'odham language, we say Skooksjardik, which means good morning. So Skooksjardik, everyone. My name is Deanna Scabby. I'm councilwoman for the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community Tribal Council. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I'm just really grateful to see and feel the energy that all of you have here. Having a sold-out crowd here today, I know that it's very important and special for you as leaders and stakeholders in this great city of Scottsdale. I appreciate Mayor Lane and the Scottsdale City Council for working very well with our tribal council and with our community. Our governments work together and we support one another in many efforts. And as neighbors, we always try to be mindful of one another. So I really appreciate Mayor Lane being here, and as well as the other city council leaders here. Some of the things that we are doing here in Scottsdale, this Scottsdale Community College has been here for a number of years. Our people way back thought it was very important to have education in the lives of our people. And so SCC has offered some wonderful programs and services for our people, and many have attained their goals and have moved on to other universities after they've attained their associate's degrees here. So we're really grateful for the wonderful programs that really do help our people to become competitive in the market out there. This corridor, we call this Pima Road here our corridor, and this is an enterprise area that we want to be a hallmark for Native American peoples all over the country. We call it the Talking Stick, a cultural and entertainment district. We are the first ones to have a Salt River Fields, which is a spring training. Nowhere in Indian country has there been a spring training facility like we have here in Salt River. So that is a first for us. The Scottsdale Community College here is a first in Indian country, and I believe the only community college that is on Indian lands in harmony with working with the Maricopa Community Colleges District. So that is a first. Our people have been very innovative and creative in trying to take care of ourselves and the needs that we need as far, whether it's public safety, infrastructure. We're not privy to have taxes, land taxes, property taxes. So we have to try to be very creative in how we're going to take care of our people. So as you wander and look down the corridor, you'll see many things that we do. We have a landfill, Salt River landfill. We have a Saddleback Communications, a telecommunications facility that takes care of a lot of those needs as well. So on behalf of our Tribal Council, President Delbert Ray, Vice President Martin Harvier, and the rest of our Tribal Council, we want to welcome you and thank you for being here, and that if you want to enjoy your time, we always welcome you to the Talking Stick Resort, and it's a wonderful place to enjoy your weekend, great food and entertainment. So please enjoy your time here on our tribal lands, and we hope that we continue, as all of us do, continue to have a positive and a good positive relationship for the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Scabby. And you know, the Scottsdale is very fortunate to enjoy such a unique relationship with the Scottsdale Pima Maricopa Indian community. Now, if you would just direct your attention to the video monitors, you'll see a message from our governor, Doug Ducey.
Good morning, and welcome to another great year of Scottsdale Forward. I'm told there are more than 250 business and civic leaders gathered here today, and with Bob Parsons leading the discussion, I know this year's symposium will carry on its tradition as one of the most productive economic development forums here in the Valley. I also want to commend Mayor Lane and Scottsdale Chamber President Mark Hegel for keeping their focus squarely on the future. I share your goals. My focus is on making Arizona the best and most attractive place in the country to start or relocate a business. So we're revamping our approach to economic development, getting government out of the way of job creators, lessening burdens on the private sector, and helping business owners and employees get to work easier and faster. And to complement these efforts, we're creating a more unified and effective marketing plan that will improve how we promote Arizona to the world. Of course, a thriving economy depends on an educated workforce, and we've put a focus on providing the resources that our schools need to be the best in the nation. Quality of life is also important in attracting the best companies. When I think about the best place to catch a spring training game, play a round of golf, take a vacation, start a business, and raise a family, I think Scottsdale, which is why it is one of our state's greatest assets. But no city and no state is ever done planning for the future. And that's why Scottsdale Forward is so important. We all have a role to play in making our state even greater. Together, let's continue to think big, aim high, and look forward. Thank you, and enjoy your event.
Well, thank you, Governor. We appreciate that. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the stage David Bentler, who is the Manager of Community and Economic Development at Arizona Public Service, and he is today's moderator for our Scottsdale Economic Development panel. And the members are Chris Camacho, President and CEO of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council; Danielle Casey, City of Scottsdale Economic Development Director; and R. Glenn Williamson, who is CEO, Canada-Arizona Business Council. Take it away, David.
Glenn, thank you. Have a seat. All right. Well, this is great. What exciting to be the moderator for this distinguished panel here. They have all the answers about what's going on in economic development in Arizona and Scottsdale and internationally, as a matter of fact. And we're going to ask you guys to be a part of this as well. So you all have your clickers, so you don't have to get them yet, but we're going to ask you to engage with that pretty soon. So you'll be a part of this. I'm going to start with just a quick little bio of each of our guests here. And we're going to start off with Danielle. Danielle Casey joined the City of Scottsdale June of 2013, right? She is responsible for the oversight of the Economic Development Department, excuse me, which includes executing the city's initiatives related to new business attraction, business retention and expansion, small business and entrepreneurial support, and employment center revitalization. Danielle was previously the Assistant City Manager of the City of Maricopa, also the Economic Development Director of the City of Maricopa, and received her bachelor's degree from Arizona State University. Danielle, there's one clap. Danielle is the immediate past president of Arizona Association for Economic Development, AAED, and was the Economic Developer of the Year in 2010. Please help me welcome Danielle Casey. Glenn Williamson is the founder and CEO of the Canada-Arizona Business Council, a private sector group sanctioned by the Canadian government and the state of Arizona to work on increasing bilateral trade and foreign direct investment between Canada and Arizona. Mr. Williamson is also the chairman of EPCOR Water USA, the largest private water utility in Arizona, a subsidiary of EPCOR Utilities headquartered in Edmonton, Alberta, with operations in Canada and the US. Mr. Williamson is also the CEO of Nest Ventures, you're a busy man, with offices in Montreal and Phoenix. And on February 10th, 2014, Glenn was appointed Honorary Consul for Canada for Arizona. Please help me welcome Glenn. Chris Camacho serves as the president and CEO of the longest standing public-private partnership for economic development and one of the most respected, I might add, in the nation, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, or GPEC. During his tenure, GPEC has led the attraction of more than 175 companies, creating over 26,000 jobs and $2.2 billion in capital investment. Some of the more notable projects include Apple, Silicon Valley Bank, Zenefits, GoDaddy, Yelp, Amazon, Garmin, General Motors, and many others. He too was a previous AAD president and winner of the Economic Developer of the Year from AAD. Chris lives here in Scottsdale, and one thing that wasn't in his bio, he was an All-American in soccer in college. So please help me welcome the All-American, Chris Camacho. All right, we're going to start off with Danielle.
All right.
Okay, now that you have 2.5 years under your belt as Economic Development Director for the city of Scottsdale, what is the state of economic development here in the city?
2.5 years goes by fast.
Yeah.
So I generally don't always, paint totally rosy pictures if they don't exist, and I like to be transparent and direct. I think the state of economic development is very good in Scottsdale, and I say that for a number of reasons. Economic developers are not in charge of the economy. We don't, I say this in many of my talks, that we do not directly create jobs. If I could, I'd be in a different business, maybe like Glenn. But what we do as public servants, especially on the municipal side, is put programs and services together to react to the environment and to support the business community. As the mayor says, we like to get government out of the way and facilitate growth in a number of ways. And so I would say our program is strong. We have a wonderfully adopted strategic plan for economic development that the council approved. We're 1 year into a 5-year plan. We've made great strides. We have a very strong business retention and expansion effort. And internally, watching Scottsdale, I'm just blown away at the level to which our departments, especially now, are working really in unison together. We're working together on downtown parking initiatives. We're working together on the future of downtown overall. We're partnering between transportation and planning and economic development and tourism on advancing McDowell Corridor and then turning our sights towards the air park and northward. And everyone, I think, is aware of the strength of the Cure Corridor program that'll be going into its 4th year event this year, which we're already starting to plan. So I would say programmatically from community partnerships, and I would love to point to, I've had this conversation recently with a few people. The chamber partnership is unbelievable, and I'll say this in this room. Many economic development departments don't have the strength of partnership that we do with our chamber in Scottsdale, and that's something we should be extremely proud of and embrace. And I've never, since my days setting foot here, not been welcomed and supported by the chamber, so thank you.
Fantastic, great. Well, Chris, how about from a regional perspective? Are the leads steady at GPEC, and how do you work those leads with the city of Scottsdale?
Well, as long as Glenn keeps bringing Canadian investment here and the city of Scottsdale keeps transacting against these opportunities we have in tech, it's going to be a nice runway for us. So I'll just give you some numbers as an indication of what's occurring. So back in 2006, as an example, so look, rewind 10 years ago, less than 1% of the prospect activity we were fielding was of international origin. And today, 20% of our pipeline, which is 280 companies, are from foreign opportunities. And 50% of that number is largely due to Glenn's work in Canada. So 50% of the international activity evaluating Arizona, evaluating Metro Phoenix, is from the Canadian markets. The 3 industries that we're seeing that are adding intensity and job growth, Danielle mentioned Cure Corridor, healthcare. A lot of that's tied to patient care and clinical research. That's growing at a clip about 14% over the next 5 years, the projection. So we're going to see a lot of healthcare job growth. At the same time, you're going to see information communication technologies, which is largely software. That's a burgeoning industry across the region, but specifically anchored here in Scottsdale, Tempe, and Phoenix, and a lot of projected growth. We're actually going to outpace Austin, Texas, and Denver, Colorado in percentage job growth in software over the next 5 years as well. And then the third sector, which is probably no surprise to any of you in the room, the financial services sector is going through a dramatic consolidation movement across the country, and there's going to be 4 market winners as these headquartered companies and back office IT, administrative services, shared services decide on where they're going to place domestic headcount. Those 4 markets are going to be Metro Phoenix, places like Dallas, Texas, places like Atlanta, in places like Charlotte, North Carolina, which have great infrastructure, have done great placemaking from a community and livability perspective, have aggressive and approachable communities with the right tax environment and regulatory environment, and number one is labor. So the number one distinction going forward as you fast forward, what's going to make markets different, all things being equal on the regulatory and tax environment and livability, it's going to be your ability to produce talent. So we're sitting here in the community college as a great example. This community college network's ranked amongst the top in every measure that we compete with across the country of any other location. So to David's question, lead generation looks about 30% over last year. And I think the runway that I foresee over the next 36 months, we'll probably see the best run that we've seen all the way back to 4, 5, 6, 2004, 5, and 6, which felt pretty good. So we'll talk about some of the things we could do to even accelerate that and the quality job aspects that we're looking at going forward.
Fantastic. And first, before I get to Glenn, you and Chris, your socks are amazing. I wore my black socks today, and I'm a little embarrassed about that. But,
I was looking at those too.
Yeah, that's right. So, Glenn, we hear a lot about the economic activity with Canadian ties in Arizona. What can you tell us about the Canadian influence activity in Arizona, and why is Canada important to Arizona?
I think, David, one of the key things to remember with Canada right now is that it's the United States' largest trading partner. So as we sit here right now, we're doing about $750 billion in bilateral trade with the United States between Canada. Arizona historically has not had its market share. If you add up the foreign direct investment number, it's about $745 billion as well. So you're north of $1.4 trillion. We only get about $6 billion of that. So this is really market share issues. The money is already coming down, the companies are already coming down, or they're currently in the other 49 states. This is a reallocation of the pieces on the chessboard where Arizona has now become very relevant. And one of the functions of making that happen has been that during the recession, so many Canadian decision makers bought houses in the state of Arizona that it became a ground zero, which it wasn't before. So now, while the Canadian dollar is inverted and people are feeling a little bit less on the acquiring of American assets, those people have already made their decisions during the last 6 or 7 years. Scottsdale is at the tip of the spear. Scottsdale represents the highest net worth Canadians coming out of Canada. It's like a Naples, Florida. It's like a Palm Springs. So when I look at that, I say what we're seeing currently in the state of Arizona has shifted from tourism to home ownership to now reallocation of companies from Canada and companies that are Canadian in the other 49 states to Arizona. We're north of 350 companies here now, and I don't see this slowing down at all.
Great, thanks. Well, I think I just heard the buzzer. That means it's time for audience participation. So grab your clickers here and get ready. So we're gonna make these things happen in just a few seconds. Is a question up there? Sure. The first question is gonna be, audience, what do you see is the largest hurdle for economic development in Scottsdale? So all you gotta do is you gotta just push one button on here to activate it. And I just activated it and it says, here's what I gave it my answer. So I didn't even mean to do that. But so you can pick A, B, C, or D. Excuse me. A is high cost of housing in Scottsdale, the biggest hurdle. B is lack of large land sites for campus-style projects. C is earthquakes. D is workforce slash education. So if you will, please enter your choice. And you probably have about 15 more seconds to do that. Think about it. You got to make sure you get it right. And you'll get extra credit if you get it right. So I think we'll get ready. Are you all ready? I think we'll close the poll in just a few seconds, right? We're going to close the poll. And now we're going to see what the results are instantaneously on the screen. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we have a very smart crowd here. They chose workforce education, 50%, it looks like. High cost of housing in Scottsdale is 28%. and lack of large land sites for campus-style projects, 19%. And we did have a few that chose earthquakes. Does anyone that chose earthquakes want to raise their hand? I know we had an earthquake. I don't see, no one's fessing up to that, but we did have an earthquake a month ago or so. Did you guys feel that? I didn't feel it, actually. But, okay. Well, I'm going to go to the panel here and ask them what they think about those answers. And I guess we'll start off with you, Danielle. Would that be your answer, or what do you think? How do you think our audience did here?
Well, I'll throw in. I think they did an excellent job. Chris might have given them a teaser on that. So, but it's a big issue, workforce and education. And again, we're here at a community college system, which is an amazing resource for getting us workforce prepared. And I might toss this over to Chris even to talk to you about many, many initiatives that are going on across the valley to address this challenge. And one of the things that we're doing locally in Scottsdale Economic Development, we've interviewed many, many of our companies, about 100 a year. And when they keep saying we're having challenges with talent or workforce, the ones we're talking to and what we're trying to address are some higher level skills gap talent. So people with 3, 4, 5 years of experience, engineers, developers, especially when we look at ICT or software as a service companies. So we are doing missions now, and so I'm actually flying out this afternoon to Austin, and we're taking 3 companies with us. They're going on their own dime because they want to participate, and we're going to be in Austin at the South by Southwest Job Expo to educate people that don't know anything about Arizona on the fact that it's an amazing place to live. It's not in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't have tumbleweeds rolling down the middle of the highway. Most highways. And and we also have an amazing concentration of companies that we maybe didn't have a decade ago that they can come work at and thrive at and have multiple job opportunities and career opportunities. So that's what we're doing.
Great, thank you. Well, let's see. Who would like to answer who would like to jump in on that? And Chris, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I see the time here, so I'll try to be brief because there's a lot here. So, the response on workforce education obviously wasn't surprising, and I know we'll talk about the lack of large land sites as well. But one thing that I constantly do is evaluate how we compare from a competitiveness perspective against other places across the country. And one unfortunate aspect of this market, like it or not, our national brand, our national reputation, I think is really not at a level where it should be. And so when I go into San Francisco, for example, or go into New York or any of these other hubs of large industry or even global, either they don't know about Metro Phoenix, Arizona, so they have no view of the place, or it's that our education system is okay. And so when I talk to these companies, and again, most of you know, if you know me, I'm a big data guy, right? So I love interpreting and assessing data. And we're constantly measuring our competitive position. And as the governor said in his remarks, the importance of delivering talent to the workforce in terms of where future jobs are and the fluid nature in which community colleges, JTEDs and the K-12 system, even our K-12 system as a whole, how we're preparing these students to where future jobs are, recognizing that many students are not on the 4-year university track. We should try to get as many as we can on that track. But the reality is there's still a large base of students across this region that are not on that track today. And so I often use the terminology that we're a great market. We're every indice, every measurement, we're a great market. We're not yet a world-class market. There's many things we need to do to position ourselves as a world-class market. That's largely tied to investment in infrastructure. It's physical infrastructure, transportation, giving our communities the tools, but largely it's D. And what's going to separate markets in the future, as I described in my first response, is impacting poverty rates, it's impacting educational attainment. Because if you think about it, just break it down to the most simplistic form, educational attainment as it relates to K through 12 educational attainment translates to the ability for an individual to earn an income. So you're limited if you don't move on to some kind of post-secondary certification or to your technical school. That's going to curb your ability to earn income, which in the future, there's no doubt there's a coinciding interaction between educational attainment and future tax base. And so there's an inextricable link. The data certainly shows that. So a lot of our focus is about how do we go from a great market to a world-class market, and really the centerpiece is in education. We can talk more about that if we have time.
Great, thank you. Glenn, did you have anything you want to jump in on?
I certainly do. Let's talk about A for 2 seconds and put in perspective Toronto and Vancouver at $1,500 a square foot. Trust me, Scottsdale is not a cost of housing issue, even for the 28%. The workforce education, one of the things that I like to talk about is a Canadian company called Bombardier. Bombardier went into Querétaro, Mexico, and they worked with the Mexicans, and they created a community education workforce in less than 5 years. So the issue for Canadian companies coming here is there an infrastructure of people and decision makers here that should they decide to set up shop, that they can send people to the community colleges to train them? So it's not kicking out the perfectly trained person. Many of these Canadian companies are willing to work in tandem with the community colleges to train their workforces on the spot and gear up. We have a company here in town called JV Driver. They come down from Alberta. They have 200 plus welders, and they had no welders when they came down here, and they worked with the community college in the valley, and now they have a program. They funded all the equipment to go in to get it done, and they have got exactly what they wanted in workforce coming out the other end. So my statement is, do not think that you have to have the workforce fully trained and ready to go day one. Canadian companies that come here are willing to work with community colleges in real time on workforce so that they get the people they want in the place they want for probably 30 to 40% less than they're currently paying in Canada, and a better workforce than they're getting in other parts of the States.
Great. Thank you, Glenn. We're going to come right back. Oh, it's the bell already. Okay, I heard that. We'll come right back to you in a second, Glenn. But the audience, you get another question here. Is the question up there? Sure it is. What types of companies are more apt to consider Scottsdale for their home? Is it A, rail-served heavy manufacturing, B, financial service companies, C, high-tech medical manufacturing, or D, web-based tech firms? So you have about 20 seconds to answer this question, and we'll see what the panel has to say about your answers. Well, about 10 more seconds, and we will close. Well, I need to vote. Let's see here. Okay. We'll close the polls, and the instantaneous results are showing on the screen right now. Web-based tech firms, how about that? 45%, followed by financial service companies, 36%, high-tech manufacturing, 18%, and rail-served manufacturing. Who picked that? I have ideas who picked that, but okay, so
McCormick Park doesn't have freight.
McCormick Park, yeah, okay. Danielle says McCormick Park doesn't have freight there. So that's our only rail in Scottsdale. We don't have heavy rail, so that's probably not a good answer, but that's okay. You can choose what you'd like. So I guess we'll start again. Danielle?
I'm just thinking the same person who chose earthquake is choosing heavy rail. Absolutely. These are, again, our audience, as we expect. Everybody associated with Scottsdale Forward is right on. We're seeing a strong influx of financial services companies, advanced business services, essentially, and a lot of insurance. So think about that as well. So Quicken Loans continues to grow. Vanguard is a really amazing firm. They're actually one of the ones traveling, both of those are traveling with us to Austin this week and helping promote all of our initiatives. And then we do see quite a few web-based tech firms, so anybody that's looked in downtown Scottsdale and seen a lot of the deal flow that's growing there, it's highly attractive for all those many urban environment reasons that we can kind of chat on a little bit more.
Great. Glenn, thoughts?
I think the audience is absolutely correct. I think anything to do with the web, internet, and financial services are certainly the trend we're seeing here.
Yeah. Great. Chris?
Yeah, I'd say B and D are the obvious layup answers because there's a lot of organic activity. I do think high-tech medical manufacturing over time, if you look at the mayor and council and certainly Danielle's work with the Cure Corridor, that's going to be an opportunity, and that's really high-tech opportunities for this marketplace. And I'd say the other dynamic that I would mention, and I think the Scottsdale Chamber and certainly Danielle's team do a great job of this, better than most across the valley, is really interacting with your local firms. And that's where about 80% of the jobs in this region are coming from. It's those local firms that have the ability to find the workforce, have the ability to partner with the community college to get to some level of scale. And so we're on the front lines trying to recruit more industry to the markets, important across specifically those bottom three, because I agree, I don't think rail's in the future here, is there's a lot of movement, and we talk about, as we market as GPAC across the 23 cities to prospective companies, we use this terminology, going to scale. This is a market where you can go to scale, very different than other places. You can't go to scale in Salt Lake City. You can go to limited scale in Denver, Colorado. But because of our labor force, because of this airport being one of the top 10 employment hubs across the U.S. At Sky Harbor, the in and out privilege of this market, in addition to physical real estate. So I'm going to touch on that. That'll be my last point. Is these companies in the bottom three, probably more so B&D, the requirements on the front end for companies today to have existing product available is increasingly important. Glenn and I were talking in the green room about getting additional capital and REIT investment in this market, because even though office vacancy is still about 19%, which is still higher than what we want, a lot of the demand from the client side today is existing product. So your South Scottsdale, sub-market node, you have limited capabilities from a real estate perspective for these, D firms. Should be A firms, but D firms. So, when these companies come in, 85% of the time they want existing product, and that's largely driven by not just that, they don't want to build their own building. It's largely they don't have time. So we've done everything we can across this region to get expedited permitting, available, and this community does that better than just about anyone else, I think, in the country. But that's increasingly important. Physical infrastructure and physical inventory has become increasingly relevant to this dialogue.
Great. So there's really 3 correct answers there, I guess. They're all good answers. So you did a great job out there, except 2 of you maybe. Glenn, I'm going to come back to you and ask you, you talked about the Canada-Arizona connection, and can you get more specific on the Scottsdale Canadian firms? Are we having success with luring Canadian firms to Scottsdale, and will they continue to come to Scottsdale?
The answer is yes. There is a great affinity to Scottsdale as a brand in Canada, in the boardrooms, very specifically in Toronto. They are moving companies here at a very fast clip. Brookfield, which is a very significant company out of Toronto, has about 600 people here in Scottsdale. IA Insurance, the largest Quebec insurance company, has got their US headquarters here in Scottsdale. The list goes on, and a lot of this has to do with what everybody would expect. It's quality of life. So these decision makers, these CEOs, like living in Scottsdale, and therefore their senior executives are now moving here, and they're setting up more and more companies here. We do not see this slowing down. 87% of all private jet aircraft at Scottsdale Airport are Canadian. Wow. So that puts it into perspective, who's flying in here, why they're flying in here, and for what reasons. Sky Harbor, 75% of all international travel coming through Sky Harbor is Canadian. That broadens itself out. But Scottsdale itself is an epicenter for Canadian decision makers. Over 38% of Desert Mountain is Canadian. So these numbers are very, very significant.
It's amazing.
And they are here, and the more interaction they have with the chamber and the people that are living here, the better everybody will do. And I'm a firm believer that real economic development, while in the hands of professionals to my left and right, is in your hands. It's how you treat these people while they're here and how they integrate into the DNA of the community is how much more they're going to bring.
Fantastic. Well, I hope we're showing the Canadian flag at the Scottsdale Air Park, right? 87%, I had no idea. Yeah. Danielle, for you and your team have been very successful in luring tech companies such as Weebly and ZocDoc to Scottsdale. Why are they attracted to Scottsdale? And what do we need to do to keep them in Scottsdale?
Sure. Well, first I'll touch on it's because of our partners, State Commerce Authority and GPEC, Greater Phoenix Economic Council.
And electric utilities.
Absolutely. That's jumped ahead of me there, David. But they do amazing. Right. They do amazing work, really making the business case for the region. So many of these companies get into the state and get into the region because of the work that those partners are doing. So when the deal flow comes into us, if we haven't connected with the company directly, but we've worked with our partners, they've already done quite a bit of the groundwork. You know, Chris's team has done amazing work in analytics, really comparing markets and making that business case. So Weebly's a great example. Weebly came to us and they were evaluating the greater Phoenix market and Austin, and they were looking at Tempe versus downtown Scottsdale, and they really loved the walkable environment. I think these are some of the things that we know are attractive to millennial workers. It's the outdoor atmosphere, it's cool creative coffee shops, it's the ability to go, you know, 5 minutes down the street and have that creative environment, it's transit. So, but I would say all other things being equal, when you really get down to it, and maybe the real estate case is pretty even, and maybe the other cost factors are even, sometimes you just have to get really creative and have a team that's willing to think on your feet. So the case in Weebly was the real estate broker on that deal said, you know, we just really need to show them that you guys are cool and that you're not stuffy. What can you do? So we went out with a video crew within, you know, 24 hours notice and put together a really amazing video of people on the Civic Center Mall enjoying, you know, cultural attractions. I think it was during the culinary festival. And we called the mayor and said, I know you're really busy, Mayor, but we'd like 10 minutes of your time today. And we went and taped him, and we were able to produce a video that we put on their website platform and sent to them. And I thought maybe that helped a little bit, but we recently had a great event at Weebly's offices where they opened up their entire floor, invited all the small businesses in the Scottsdale community. 76 people showed up, and they were offered the opportunity to get trained on how to build a website in a night, no cost, with Weebly professionals there. And when I was talking to their head marketing officer that was running the event, she said, yeah, the founder told me that that's really what did it. So my answer is, there's quite a bit of work in the background, and there's analytics, and there's different reasons you want to compare the areas, but sometimes it comes down to creativity. And also the fact that, you know, a one-bedroom apartment in Scottsdale is less than half the price of San Francisco, and you don't need 5 roommates. So that's helpful too.
That's great.
Right.
Thank you. Well, there's the bell again, ladies and gentlemen. It's your turn again. We have another audience participation. Pick up your clickers. And this one's a little bit different question this time. Is it up there? Yes, it is. So I've heard, gone to some of Chris's events where he had site selectors, and I heard some of them saying things such as clients are sometimes looking for, you know, to be located on light rail. So I'm just curious about that. Should Scottsdale consider light rail possibilities for our community? A for yes, B for no. So the polls are open. I voted. And let's give it 10 more seconds, because this audience is pretty sharp. They've been right on it. There's no earthquake questions in this one. So let's close the polls, and let's see what those instantaneous results are. Ladies and gentlemen, 75% yes, 25% no. How about that? Chris, do you have companies? Do you have companies and prospects that ask about light rail sites specifically?
Yeah, so that is one inclusionary item into the RFIs, that the request for information that we receive is public transit access, and particularly it's coming down to real estate parking ratios. And the questioning about, I think Danielle described, is kind of the live, work, play capabilities of a market. So if you're bringing an executive team down from San Francisco that's used to a walkable environment and urban transit, and you could say Portland's the same way, and all these other markets that are pretty dense. We have a very different model in that we have really 10 different employment centers geographically across the region, with 52 actual broader employment centers, so very different from an urban core like you'd see in Denver or other locations. But to this question, this does come up even more frequently than it did 2 years ago, is the access through a light rail system. Is it available? Do the stations tie into my real estate opportunity? And I'd say the other thing that comes up as well, because State Farm asked this question, and many other of the larger corporate firms, is they're just looking at varying ways of accessing real estate. And so if you look at the Tempe and Scottsdale corridor, which come up on those 4 industries, or really 3 industries that you identified before, this light rail access is coming up increasingly more and more. And where it wasn't on the radar 10 years ago, it is today. And not to say you're going to absolutely lose a project because you don't have it, but when companies are evaluating that as one of the indices, it is a consideration that they are evaluating.
I have one more final question for the whole panel. If you had a magic wand, what one thing would you wish for Scottsdale that would help bring more high-wage jobs, or Glenn, in your case, more Canadian firms, to our community? And Danielle, let's start with you. You have a magic wand. I know you have one.
Oh, I want to see what these guys say. I think when we're looking at the opportunity to bring high-wage jobs, Chris mentioned the ability to have space to put them in, ready-to-go space. We're also concerned about campus-style development opportunities. So we've worked with some amazing clients, in the past and even more recently. If we can work with the governor's office more, work with the state land department more to continue to find ways to streamline the state land process, that could be really game-changing. And our strategic plan talks specifically about the North Scottsdale area that is still, raw state land, of that being an area for premier corporate campus development. So I would say continuing and having success, that's going to take a long time to get, a better process ironed out. And so that would be, if I have to pick one. I'm an only child, so I want everything.
You want everything, of course. Glenn, you have a magic wand.
The first thing I would say is congratulations, Scottsdale. You're doing everything right. You're not doing anything wrong with the Canadian market. The only thing that is that could use a little bit of work is scalability to make sure that Canada is built into your business plans. It's sort of like your attic. You don't get up there very often. When you do, you find cool stuff up there. And I think it's really important to constantly remind yourself that geographic location is not necessarily centers of excellence. And centers of excellence in Canada are similar centers of excellence here in Scottsdale, and we need to make more connectivity, but it's fine the way it is right now with a little bit of scaling up.
Great, thank you. And Chris, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, silver bullet. Well, one thing I think about this market is it's easy in Arizona to get complacent because the sun shines so much. It's an easy place to live. I was talking to an executive that just moved here from Chicago, and he and his family, young family, said there's no way I'll ever go back. So you have the wind at your back, in this market from a livability perspective, but that leads to market complacency. So I use those terms, a great market to world class. Places around us have aspirations to become world class, and that requires tough decisions. And for us to really celebrate what we do well, but to strive in a long-term calculated plan, much like Utah did 15 years ago with Envision Utah. We need to embark upon that kind of strategic thinking at the state, regional, and local levels and all buy into a One Arizona strategy. And I think that, under this governor's leadership, he's a unique dynamic thinker that understands, the need to move at the speed of business. Markets around us are doing so, and we must adapt. And so it's not really a silver bullet per se, but it's a requirement that we recognize we must compete globally, and this isn't just a Mountain West competition.
Well, that's going to wrap up our panel. Please help me thank our panel as we move Scottsdale forward.
Thank our fine panel here. Thanks, David, for moderating this with Danielle, Chris, and our Glenn. We appreciate it. Some important takeaways from that conversation: no earthquakes, no railroads. Now I'd like to introduce today's keynote speaker. Bob Parsons, best known as the founder of GoDaddy, is widely recognized for his entrepreneurial and philanthropic efforts. He currently is a member of the GoDaddy Board of Directors and the CEO and founder of YAM Worldwide, which is home to his entrepreneurial ventures in the fields of, get ready for this, motorsports, golf, real estate, marketing, video production, innovation, and philanthropy. He is a U.S. Marine Corps Vietnam veteran and a recipient of the Purple Heart, Combat Action Ribbon, and the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. He attended college at the University of Baltimore on the GI Bill and graduated magna cum laude. His alma mater presented him with an honorary doctorate in 2008. 2 years later, he was named Distinguished Entrepreneur. His first endeavor was Parsons Technology, a software company he started in his basement in 1984 after teaching himself how to write computer programs. When Parsons Technology was sold to Intuit, Inc. in 1994 for $64 million, and that's $1984, by the way, The company had nearly 1,000 employees, $100 million in annual revenue, and 3 million customers. But he wasn't finished there. 3 years later, in 1997, Bob Parsons started GoDaddy, and today it is the world's largest technology provider dedicated to small business. In 2011, he sold a majority stake in GoDaddy in a deal that valued the company at $2.3 billion. Bob remains the single largest shareholder of that company. So today, his core businesses include Parsons Extreme Golf, PXG, Harley-Davidson of Scottsdale, you've probably seen the commercials, Go AZ Motorcycles, Spooky Fast Customs, Southern Thunder Harley-Davidson, Graceland Harley-Davidson, Blues City Harley-Davidson. You kind of think he rides a motorcycle here, and he does. Scottsdale National Golf Club, Big YAM, the Parsons Agency, Sneaky Big Studios, YAM Capital, and YAM Properties. Outside of all of this, his interests include technology, public speaking, sports, motorcycles, and golf. And he lives in Scottsdale with his wife, Renee, and their 4 dogs. In 2012, Parsons and his wife, Renee, founded the Bob and Renee Parsons Foundation, which has awarded more than $100 million in critical funds to charitable organizations. And then in 2013, he was presented with a Visionary Award given to an individual whose achievements, ideas, and vision have provided invaluable direction, leadership, and voice to the greater Phoenix area. Believe it or not, one page, we saved a medium-sized tree, keeping it to this one page. Please help me welcome to the stage Mr. Bob Parsons.
Well, good morning, everybody. You know, that's some introduction, and I'll tell you right now, I'll get this out of the way. The one thing my mother is ashamed of is I failed the 5th grade. What can I say? I'm here to tell you why I think Scottsdale is a wonderful place to be, a great place for business, and Arizona is the last great state. And how I came to be here. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, grew up there, left the city for the first time when I joined the Marine Corps in 1968. Did a tour of duty in Vietnam, got wounded, came home, worked in a steel mill as a laborer. Brutal work, but you're in great condition. And then went to college at the University of Baltimore. Now I'm going to be giving, because my time is limited here, I'm giving you kind of like a cliff notes of how all this stuff happened. But after I went to school at the University of Baltimore, and unlike my earlier education, I had the benefit of being in the Marine Corps, and I learned the importance of discipline, and discipline not in the sense that you get punished for doing something wrong, but discipline in that you have the ability and realization that if you make a commitment, you do it. No matter what. You don't have to like doing it, but you got to do it, and you got to do it well. The Marine Corps taught me that, and anything I've ever accomplished in my life, it's because of that, and I owe that to those guys. But anyhow, in college, I graduated magna cum laude, became an accountant, literally because it was the first major in the book. Yeah, it's true. When I was first one in my family that went to college, I didn't even know anybody that went to college. I grew up in the inner city in Baltimore, in a blue-collar neighborhood. Wonderful place to grow up, but nobody went to college. And when I was at the when I went to go to college, I went to the registrar's office, and because of programs for veterans and just coming back from Vietnam, I didn't have to take any SAT, ACT tests. My transcripts, thank God, didn't enter into it. And the guy asked me, he goes, well, what's your major? I didn't even know you had a major. I just thought you went to college. And so he said, you got to go see a counselor to figure out what your major is. I went to see this guy, and there was a line that was, it was really, really a long line. If I got in that line, I'd probably just be getting to see him today. So I went back to the registrar's office, and I said, anyway, I can just do this myself. He goes, yeah, sure. Here's a book of majors. You sign a waiver, you pick your major, and if it doesn't work out, you switch to something else. So he gave me the book and opened it up, first major, accounting. I asked him what it was. He goes, you good in math? I said, yeah. And he goes, you like business? I said, yeah, I think I do. And he says, you should be an accountant. So that's how I wound up majoring in accounting. It was a very fortuitous choice. I loved it. I graduated magna cum laude, and as I said, I passed the CPA exam the first time. After that, I did a number of things. My whole career has been based around computer programming and the internet, high tech. The way that started was I was, as an accountant, I was on a business trip out in California, and I finished up what I had to do. And this is back before calculators with LED screens, back before word processors, but we were still using typewriters with correct-to-type. You guys remember that? Maybe if some of you do. Back then, I had some time to kill. I had 12 hours to kill before I went to the airport. And so I went by the Stanford campus and happened to pick up a book on computer programming in a basic language. So I read that book while I was waiting for the plane and wrote my first program or two on the flight back. Now, it just so happens that the company I worked for was owned by Control Data, and we had a dumb computer terminal in our office. I got the programs working about a couple weeks later, and I became a hobbyist. Loved it. I bought one of the first Apples that came out, and then after the IBM came out, I sold the Apple and bought a IBM PC back in 1980. So everything I learned, I taught myself. But the one difference between me and everybody else that I knew is most people, when they wanted their computer to do something, they bought the software. Me, instead, I studied the architecture and internals of the computer, and whenever I wanted mine to do something, I wrote the code. It got to the point where I was pretty good at it, and I eventually wrote a program that would do money management for my family. And in 1984, I landed in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I started a business in my basement. I called it Parsons Technology, and we sold that program. It was called Money Counts. I struggled for a number of years. When you start a business for the first time, you're like a young guy walking into jail for the first time. You're going to learn a lot of lessons. And you're going to learn them all the hard way. So I struggled for the first couple years. I had a total of all the money I had in the world, which was about $40,000 plus $50,000 I borrowed, and eventually got the business to work. Got it to where it had 1,000 employees, we're doing about $100 million a year. And in 1994, my wife and I decided to sell it, and Intuit came by. We were thinking, well, if we got $40 million for this business, it'd be great. But instead, they offered me $60 million. Now, I didn't go to Harvard, but I knew enough to tell him I was insulted with the offer. So we got him up to $64 million and sold it. A few years earlier than that, my wife and I went on our 20th anniversary, and we went to, that wasn't my 20th, it was somewhere. See, that's one of the reasons I'm not married to her anymore. And anyhow, we went to one of our anniversaries, which was in March, and I told her, I said, look, I got a surprise for you, right? This was in the 90s. I said, dress for a place that's really warm. Don't bring any, really warm. Don't bring any winter clothes, anything like that. I'm going to take you to a place that's a surprise. I took her to the Boulders in March. We had an ice storm that week. And of course, she froze her ass off. But that was my first experience in Scottsdale. So even though the weather wasn't good, one day was, the last day the weather turned. So I kept coming back. And eventually she and I bought a small house at the Boulders. All right, so go back and, or fast forward, I was selling company to Intuit, and about a year after that, she told me she didn't want to be married anymore, and I told her I understood. So we owned a lot of property in Iowa and Illinois, and we owned this little house at the Boulders, so she wanted everything in Iowa and Illinois, and then told me to go west, young man. So I took the house at the Boulders, and I moved to Scottsdale, and I believe that was in 1996. And I did it because the weather's good, and I like to play golf, and I thought that'd be great. Now, I also had a deal with the people at Intuit at that time, where they said that I signed a deal where I couldn't work for a year. Not like no compete, couldn't work for a year. So what I did was I played golf every day. My buddies always told me, they said, man, you're going to get really good. I wasn't any better at the end of the year than I was at the beginning. But I did learn some things. I learned that when a man reaches, when you're out playing golf every day, you're playing with retired guys, right? And retired guys are a little older. And I learned that when a man hits super senior age, he sends out a signal. And the signal's unmistakable. I mean, you can spot it from 100 yards away. And you know what it is? He starts dressing like a flag from another country. So towards the end of my commitment to Intuit, I remember thinking, I said, there's just no way. I think I was playing golf with Bolivia and Argentina. And there was no way I could keep up with this. I mean, I keep doing. So I decided then to start what became GoDaddy. And when I started GoDaddy, this was back in '97, and the internet was just going, and I didn't know where it was headed, but I knew it was going to be big. So my idea then was I hired a number of people that were really sharp and good in technology, and I thought, well, these guys, we'll try a lot of things, and then, if it doesn't work, we won't do it, and if it does work, we'll do it. That's what we'll do. It's called a search fund today. I didn't know it had a name back then. We would go to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and we'd give somebody the card, and they go, well, what do you guys do? And we'd say, we don't know yet. And they'd say, you know, I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years, and I've never had a guy in business that doesn't know what he does. But that's what we did. Anyhow, from the divorce, my wife and I had $36 million in cash. And that's what I moved out here with. We tried all sorts of things. Nothing worked. We had our offices up around Gainey Center off of Via de Ventura. And man, I'll tell you what, it got tough. We eventually got to the point where, you know, one of the things I didn't realize when I set up the search firm is it's a whole lot easier to find something that doesn't work than it is that does work. I mean, it's really easy to find stuff that don't work. So we did find one thing that worked, and that was doing websites for people. And when we did the websites for people, everybody would ask, it's very expensive back then, but everybody would ask, why don't you have software that'll do the website for me? I can do it myself, and it won't be that expensive. And you know, we thought that was a great idea, so we did that, and we released our first version of it in 1999. And back then, the roar of the dot-com boom was tremendous. So what happened was, when you know, we released it, nobody would sell us advertising because people were paying stupid amounts. They were paying like $2,000 for a customer that they would earn $3 from. I mean, real dumb stuff. And so the roar of the dot-com boom just kind of drowned us out. So then we got the idea that maybe we ought to sell domain names. And domain names, you know, a .com name, every website needs one, and the companies back then, they were terrible to deal with. I mean, their systems worked half the time, our prices were stupid high, our service was non-existent, on and on. So we decided to become a registrar, and the idea was that we would sell our domain names at an inexpensive price, and people would come in, buy the domain name, and then buy our software. Decision was right as rain. Never did we dream, or did I dream, that one day we'd be the world's biggest domain registrar. So we started selling, I mean, we went ahead, started doing all the work we had to do to get cleared as a domain registrar. And it took us a year, and we sold our first domain name in October 2000. And the domain name we sold, the first one, was called Ghetto Justice. I mean, what the hell that means, I don't know. But that was the domain name. I didn't buy, somebody else did it. And when we started doing that, like, because of the domain name, the roar to .com business, you know, we had no action at all, because again, couldn't buy advertising. There was so much noise from everybody trying to make it in the internet business during that .com boom. So you know, we kept going and kept going and kept going, and then in early 2001. I decided that maybe I ought to shut GoDaddy down. And let me back up. You know, I'm not exactly a Harvard Business School guy. I look at stuff like I did back when I was trying to hustle a buck on the streets and sell somebody a newspaper for 50 cents more than the list price. You'd be one of my targets. So anyhow, I used to measure things based on how much cash I had. So when I first moved to Arizona, I had 36 million, and I said, all right, I'm going to take, and I'm not going to worry about this business till I get down to 30 million. All right, I got down to 30 million. And then I said, all right, I'm going to look at it again really hard when I get down to 27. then 25, then 24, then 20, then 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8. I got down to $6 million, and I think it was Feb 2001, and I thought, man, you know, while I still got some of this money, maybe I ought to shut this thing down, because, I mean, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. So one of the things I do in my business is I guess the term is you keep your own counsel. I don't discuss what I'm going to do with anybody. I make my own decision. I listen to people tell me their thoughts, and then I decide. So, and another characteristic is I don't like to stick anybody for anything. So if somebody's going to, you know, if I'm going to have a business problem, I'll make sure everybody's paid, employees are paid, anybody takes the beating, I'll take the beating. So I went to Hawaii, went to the Four Seasons Resort on the Big Island, and I went by myself to make a plan for how I was going to shut the company down. And this is in Feb 2001. And when I was there, as time went on, I kept thinking, man, I don't want to shut this thing down. I don't want to shut it down. And for me, the epiphany happened when I had a guy parking cars. The guy was my age, and the guy was happy as a lark, you know, throwing the keys in the air, all that kind of stuff. I remember thinking, this guy, you know, he might be the wealthiest guy in the world, but he probably has nothing. He's happy as a lark. I got $6 million and I'm miserable. What's wrong with this picture? So it was that time that I decided that, you know what? If I would go all in on the business, and if it didn't work, I'd park cars. Actually, I thought I'd be a stick man at a casino. I think that'd be a lot more fun. So I went back, didn't do a thing differently, and a couple months later, something happened that caused GoDaddy to be born. And it was the dot-com crash. The dot-com crash made GoDaddy successful. Make no mistake about that. When it happened, we were one of the few companies that kept paying their bills. Everybody else, we'd lose 2, 3, 4 companies we're paying in business with every couple days. And all of a sudden, the guys that wouldn't sell us advertising were in line to give it to me. I actually had more friends than I thought I had. So our fortunes, because our advertising was out there and nobody else was, it really resonated. And we became profitable in October 2001 and have never missed a beat. The company that was the market leader in 2005, Network Solutions, we pulled even with them, passed them. 18 months later, we doubled them. They now have less than a 1% market share. We have a 70% market share. We do business in all countries of the world. We got to the point where right now we have 5,000 employees. In 2011, I did a deal. As was mentioned in the intro, I did it with a number of private equity firms where the company was valued for $2.25 billion. I had 36 of my people came away with over $1 million, 10 of them over 20 million, and some over 100 million. I like to share. Today, I'm one of the largest shareholders in the company. I own 29% of GoDaddy, and might be 23. I'm not good with little percentages, but it's in that neighborhood. I'm the largest single shareholder. And then since then, when I went from being a CEO to chairman, and then on the board, so I quit being active in the daily business. I started a number of other businesses. One of them is Harley-Davidson of Scottsdale, largest motorcycle dealership in the world, 150,000 square feet. We have a tattoo parlor in there. Yeah. I bet nobody else showed you a tattoo up here, did they? That's 1st Marine Division, Vietnam. We got a wedding chapel. Now, you know who married the first couple? Reverend Bob. Now you can become a reverend on the internet. Takes about 10 minutes. I married the first couple. I said, by the power vested in me, by the United Church of Life, the great state of Arizona, and Harley-Davidson of Scottsdale. I pronounce you man and wife. So there are a lot of other good things about that. I own others. We own a high-end metal finishing company, Spooky Fast. YAM Capital. I'm the largest private lender in the state of Arizona. I do real high-ticket bridge loans to businesses that have good credit and are collateralized. We have YAM Properties. We've got over 1.9 million square feet under management. Own a number of malls, 4 of them here in Scottsdale. We have a private hedge fund called YAM Financial. Big YAM Advertising. That's full service advertising, public relations, and digital development. And right along with that, Sneaky Big Production Studios. We're in the process of just finishing building them. They'll be operating in June. Scottsdale National Golf Club, which is, we're going to have 45 holes of golf there. So one of the country's most exclusive and pristine golf clubs. That was my iPad telling me I'm out of time. Parsons Extreme Golf. We make the finest golf clubs in the world. These things are outstanding. That company alone is growing by 50 to 60% every month. PXG Golf. And then we got the foundation. And since its founding in 2012, we've awarded over $100 million to charity. A lot of it, 70, 80% of it right here in Arizona. We also do a lot with veterans causes. I've told the guys with the Marine Corps causes that help Marines. You know, the Marine Corps is this country's shock troops. They're the guys in first. They're trained only for one thing, that's combat. And, that sounds exciting on the surface, but they have, without a doubt, the most horrific injuries. So, we'll help them, and, they know that as long as I got a dime, they got a nickel. So, there you go. So, why Scottsdale? Well, first, and this is really important, and it's just one of those things. The weather's good. Life's short. You might as well be where the weather's good. Second, the city of Scottsdale makes it easy to do business. From working with our city planners, the planning department, which is excellent for new building, and we've done a lot of new building, from the way the police department, the fire department, all the essential services are managed. The entire city is incredibly well managed. We can be proud of that. The city's clean, it's safe, it's beautiful, and this attracts a large and talented work pool of skilled workers, and businesses are able to hire from them. That's why all my employees were hired from Arizona at GoDaddy, well, except for the ones in Iowa. But, the lion's share of them were hired here. That in itself raises the income level for everybody so that businesses can thrive. I mean, we need an environment where, if you're going to sell something, you need somebody to buy it, right? So Scottsdale is wonderful for that. GoDaddy, out of the 5,000 jobs, right, 750 of them are located in Scottsdale. Average salary, over $100,000. Not bad. At my company, I have 550 employees. 480 of them are located in Scottsdale. So, and again, overall, the average salary higher than what the average is. Scottsdale is the second reason. Third, Scottsdale's located in Arizona, baby. And I said it before, in my opinion, Arizona is like one of the last great states. I mean, there's just a few of us left. I love the way it protects business. I love the way it's a right to work state. I love the way it protects our Second Amendment rights. The state is second to none when it comes to beauty in a whole variety of ways. I mean, you've got Flagstaff, you got the desert, you got Monument Valley, on and on and on and on. I mean, to me, I live any place I want to in the world. I'm not going anywhere. And finally, the taxes are fair. So that's the third reason. So, I get asked a lot, what's next for me? One of the things I try to do is I spend my time looking way down the road because you got to take care of what's in front of you. So I really don't know what's next for me, but there's one thing I do know. If and when I start another business, it's going to be located in Scottsdale, Arizona. So thank you.
Thank you for a very enjoyable meeting.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the stage, Scottsdale Chamber CEO and President Mark Eagle.
I'm ready to walk away with his notes. I don't get out much.
Well done,
How about
Bob.
another big hand for the Reverend Bob Parsons? I'd also like to recognize and thank the voice of God, Roger Downey, for serving as our Master of Ceremonies again this year. Let's give Roger a round of applause. I want to take a moment and thank the Scottsdale Forward Planning Committee for all the time and hard work which went into making today's program such a success. I would also like to thank Renee and Chip Whitrock with Whitrock Financial for really stepping up as a part of planning committee and overseeing the production today. And last but not least, thank you to today's co-chairs, David Itzkowitz and Doreen Ranke. Thank you all for coming today. I hope you don't mind that we're ahead of schedule. You're all going to go home a little bit early, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.